and thanks for joining us here on Encore. Coming up on today's show. Inside the artist's studio and his home, a new museum in Dakar pays tribute to late Senegalese sculptor Ousmane Sow. Electrifying sounds from the Middle East, we take a look at the hybrid music scene that's seducing crowds from Paris to Beirut. And Ethiopian treasures are at the centre of a simmering row as Addis Ababa asks one London gallery to return their ancient artefacts. He's been called the Rodin of Senegal. Sculptor Ousmane Sow was known for his larger-than-life sculptures and his talent working with bronze. After his death at 81 years old, his home in Dakar has been transformed into a museum. It opens to the public this weekend. Laura Mousset and Clément Bonnereau show us round.
This is Ousmane Sow's workshop, the one he worked in until his death.
Frozen in time, Ousmane Sow's workshop, perched on the rooftop of his former home in Dakar, has remained untouched since he died in 2016. These unfinished artworks suggest Sow never stopped creating.
He was obsessed with the idea of making an animated film with his own sculptures and sets. He worked on them in this tiny workshop. Here you can see a few pairs of eyes.
Ousmane Sow made his house look like a sculpture and called it the Sphinx, anticipating a series of artworks inspired by ancient Egypt. Inside, statues of Maasai warriors rub shoulders with Sudan's Nubas and South Africa's Zulus. These expressive, muscular, almost sensual figures are Sow's signature. The artist spent much of his life as a physical therapist before turning to sculpture.
Ousmane
Sow had a unique understanding of the human body, of how it is shaped by time and space. His sculptures are not just mute, motionless shapes. I see life in them.
Ousmane Sow, often called the Rodin of Senegal, had asked that his house be converted into a museum upon his death.
He would joke around, saying he wanted to exhibit his work in a museum named after the Senegalese First Lady. But actually, he wanted his own home to become a museum.
Ousmane Sow only became a full-time sculptor in his 50s. He quickly emerged as a leading figure in contemporary art, his work displayed on the Pont des Arts in Paris in 1999. In 2013, he became the first African artist to be made a member of the Académie des Beaux-Arts.
His work earned him critical acclaim, internationally and also in Senegal. But he remains little known outside the art world. Hence, the need for this museum.
Ousmane Sow's former home joins the list of legendary house museums around the world, keeping the spirit of the artists who occupied them alive.
To music now, and we're taking a look at a subgenre of electro which has developed in the Middle East over the last decade. Blending traditional Arabic harmonies and house music beats, the young artists behind this eclectic sound have been playing to sold-out crowds in concert venues and nightclubs, both at home and here in Europe. Our reporters went to find out more about these artists and their message. Laure Wagner, Tamine Kitan and Claire Rush have this report.
The voice of Lebanese singer Fayrouz fills the air at the third edition of the Beirut Electro Parade in Paris. Hadi Zaidan commands the turntables. The Franco-Lebanese artist and producer founded the festival.
The festival began a few years ago in Paris. Its aim is to promote Beirut's electronic music scene.
I've been to Lebanon, so I wanted to come to this.
I thought the event sounded cool.
Hadi reappears later on, dressed up as his musical alter ego, Ida Cohen. Ida Cohen mainly plays Jewish folk music from the Balkans that became popular in Israel in the 1980s.
I'm not trying to become a symbol of peace between Lebanon and Israel, or between the Arab world and Israel. I just want people to discover Beirut and its surrounding region, and Israel is a part of that region.
As a child in Beirut, Hadi grew up listening to traditional Arabic music.
This is the Rabbani brothers. I just got this today.
Recently, Hadi has distanced himself a bit from his musical roots to focus more on electro.
I found that people became more interested in my work when I played Arabic music. So I decided to develop this fusion genre that brings both of these musical worlds together.
Other artists are also exploring this new sound, like Hadi's friends Guido and Hervé of the French group Acid Arab. Tonight, the duo is opening an electro festival in Paris.
We have 2 new tracks that we're going to play for the very first time. You can hear the North African flute. That was our inspiration.
Acid house and Middle Eastern melodies, the musical mix has had international success, especially with wealthy youth in Jordan.
Those who party and go to festivals in the desert are those who can afford it, and not everyone can.
It's in Jordan that the 4 members of the group 47 Soul met in 2013. Their music fuses electro and dabka, an Arab folk dance from the Near East, a nod to their Palestinian identity.
electro dabki نسميها موسيقى الخيام يا معلم. We don't do house, because if we do house, the Israelis will destroy it.
My people, before we all get
These artists may have a political message, but above all else, what they want to share is their music.
Next, it's a serious debate in the world of museums. What happens when a country asks for their artefacts back? Europe's major institutions are full of important pieces from around the world, offering Western societies the chance to see objects which tell the story of far-off cultures. Here in France, President Emmanuel Macron has said African artefacts shouldn't be held prisoner by European museums. And indeed, Ethiopia has been calling on the Victoria and Albert in London to return some of its treasures. Alexander Orcott has the details.
Among the many treasures at the Victoria and Albert Museum is an exquisite 18th century royal crown, a solid gold chalice adorned with intricate inscriptions, and dozens of precious manuscripts and other objects of worship. The Magdala artefacts were captured by British forces in the 1868 expedition to Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia. And on the 150th anniversary of the campaign, Addis Ababa is again calling for them to be returned.
What we have asked was restitution of our heritage, our Magdala heritage, Luther from Magdala, 150 years ago. We presented our request in 2007. I'm waiting for it. We haven't received any response so far.
The invasion of Abyssinia was sparked when Emperor Tewodros II seized European hostages in 1862. After diplomatic negotiations and gifts failed to secure their release, Britain dispatched troops from its armies in India. When his army was defeated, Tewodros II committed suicide with a pistol given to him by Queen Victoria. The British then fully withdrew from the territory, taking with them the Magdala treasures, along with Tewodros' son, Prince Elemayu, who later died in England aged 18 and was buried at Windsor Castle. Ethiopia has made renewed calls for the return of his remains along with its ancient treasures. The director of the V&A says giving away items from its collection is legally very difficult, so has instead proposed a long-term loan.
As we look to the future, I think what we're interested in are partnerships around conservation, interpretation, heritage management, and these need to be supported by government assistance so that institutions like the V&A can support sister institutions in Ethiopia.
But Ethiopian officials have scoffed at the offer, refusing to accept items on loan that they say are rightfully theirs.
We have a lot of written documents that show they carried out a planned and organized looting of Magdala. We also know these treasures are in the British Museum. It is clearly known where these treasures came from and to whom they belong.
A vast amount of Magdala treasure was brought to England. It said it took 200 mules and 15 elephants to carry it. Along with the V&A, the Ethiopian authorities have put in requests with around a dozen other British institutions for it to be returned.
We'll leave you with pieces of a more contemporary nature now as Dakar stages its 13th Biennale of African Art. The month-long event has become a key date in the cultural calendar on the continent, showing a wide variety of work in various locations across the city. 75 artists from over 30 countries will be showing off their creative endeavours. Here's a small selection from the show. Do remember to check out our website for more arts and culture. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.